In 2014, the Federal Trade Commission filed an official complaint against the only two companies that supply propane exchange tanks to every major retailer in America. The charge was collusion. The evidence was 7 phone calls between 2 executives in 30 hours and a trail of internal emails that read like a corporate conspiracy manual. The result is a scheme that is still costing you money right now every single time you fire up your grill. We are going to expose exactly how 2 corporations rigged a 20-pound tank to short you on propane, show you the federal documents that prove they coordinated the whole thing, and reveal the simple math that will save you hundreds of dollars a year. If you have walked into any hardware store in America recently, you have seen the propane cage sitting near the entrance. Inside that cage are blue tanks and green tanks. You see the blue Rhino logo on one side and AmeriGas on the other, and you assume these are 2 different companies competing to give you the best deal. That assumption is wrong. Blue Rhino is owned by a corporation called Feral Gas Partners. AmeriGas is owned by a corporation called UGI, and together these 2 entities control approximately 80% of the entire propane exchange tank market in the United States. The Federal Trade Commission itself stated in its complaint that Blue Rhino and AmeriGas are the only manufacturers capable of supplying exchange tanks to large national retailers like Walmart, Home Depot, and Lowe's. No other competitor held more than 9% of the market. That means when you walk into any big box store and grab a tank from the cage, you are not choosing between competitors. You are choosing between 2 arms of a duopoly that has already decided how much propane you are going to get and how much you are going to pay for it. And the number they decided on is not what the label implies. That 20-pound tank you just picked up does not contain 20 pounds of propane. It does not even contain 17. It contains 15. And the story of how that happened involves a coordinated scheme between 2 of the most powerful executives in the industry that unfolded over months before federal investigators caught them. But to understand how we got here, you have to go back to the man who invented the propane cage in the first place. The propane exchange tank industry barely existed before 1994. That year, an entrepreneur named Billy Prim founded Blue Rhino in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The name came to him during an African photo safari when he noticed a rhinoceros had a shape that reminded him of a propane tank. He added the word blue for the color of a propane flame, and one of the most recognizable brands in outdoor grilling was born. The business model was deceptively simple. Instead of making consumers drive to a gas station and wait in line for a refill, Prim put pre-filled tanks in locked cages outside grocery stores and hardware stores across the country. You drop off your empty, grab a full one, and you are grilling in 5 minutes. Americans loved the convenience, and Blue Rhino grew explosively, reaching 29,000 retail locations across 49 states before going public on NASDAQ. Then on February 9, 2004, Feral Gas Partners announced it was acquiring Blue Rhino for approximately $340 million. The chairman of Feral Gas called tank exchange the fastest growing portion of the retail propane industry. With that single acquisition, a publicly traded propane distributor swallowed the company that created the exchange tank concept. AmeriGas built its side of the duopoly the same way, through decades of systematically acquiring regional propane distributors across the country. The pivotal deal came in January of 2012 when AmeriGas purchased Heritage Propane for $2.9 billion, adding over 1 million retail customers overnight. UGI Corporation completed its full takeover of AmeriGas in August of 2019 for $2.44 billion. But the critical market snapshot is 2008, the year everything changed. By that point, Blue Rhino already controlled roughly 50% of the national wholesale exchange tank market. AmeriGas controlled roughly 30%. Combined, they owned 80%. And here is the detail that should disturb you the most. These 2 supposed competitors were so intertwined that they were literally filling each other's tanks through arrangements called co-packing agreements. Blue Rhino refilled AmeriGas tanks in Florida, Colorado, Washington, and Missouri. AmeriGas refilled Blue Rhino tanks in California and New Hampshire. The Federal Trade Commission would later describe this as a relationship far too cozy for companies that were supposed to be competing against each other for your business. In April of 2008, Blue Rhino management approved a plan that would permanently change every propane exchange tank sold in America. They decided to reduce the fill level from 17 pounds down to 15 pounds in a standard 20-pound tank without lowering the wholesale price. That is a 12% reduction in product for the exact same price. It is a price increase hidden inside the tank itself, invisible to every consumer who grabs one off the rack. There was just one problem. AmeriGas had already considered the exact same idea earlier that year and rejected it. The reason they rejected it is the key to the entire federal case. AmeriGas executives were afraid to reduce their fill because if Blue Rhino did not follow suit, AmeriGas would be selling less propane for the same price, while its only real competitor still offered more. They would lose shelf space at every major retailer, so Blue Rhino decided to go first. On April 28, 2008, Blue Rhino's Director of Strategic Accounts informed Walmart's buyer about the planned fill reduction. Walmart refused. The buyer called it exactly what it was, a price increase. The very next day, a senior Blue Rhino manager ordered production to stand down because the call with Walmart did not go according to plan. Then came the email that blew the case open. An internal Blue Rhino message stated that the only thing that can make this go away is if AmeriGas goes to 15 as well, but it has to happen very soon to legitimize the move. That email would eventually become the centerpiece of the federal investigation. On June 18, 2008, Blue Rhino's president picked up the phone and called AmeriGas's Director of National Accounts. Over the next 30 hours, those two men called each other 7 times. After those calls, Blue Rhino's president reported internally that AmeriGas had indicated they would follow closely behind in the market. 2 days later, AmeriGas management drafted a new budget that included the plan to reduce fill levels to 15 pounds. 5 days after that, Blue Rhino began officially notifying its retail customers of the change. But here is where the coordination escalated into something the Federal Trade Commission could not ignore. When AmeriGas approached Walmart with its own fill reduction, Walmart refused for a second time. So the two companies began working in tandem to break Walmart's resistance. In August of 2008, executives from both sides discussed ensuring that Home Depot stores near Walmart's headquarters in Bentonville, Arkansas, only carried 15-pound tanks. The goal was to create the illusion that the entire industry had already shifted so Walmart would believe it had no leverage to push back. At the same time, Lowe's had conditionally accepted the fill reduction, but with a dangerous ultimatum. Every major competitor, specifically Walmart, had to accept within 30 days, or Lowe's would revert to the higher fill at the lower price, which would have destroyed the economics of the entire scheme. Through September, the coordination intensified. AmeriGas's Director of National Accounts suggested issuing a direct ultimatum to Walmart. Blue Rhino's Vice President of Sales counseled patience and told him to hang in there. These were supposed competitors openly sharing negotiation strategy about a mutual customer. On October 6, 2008, Lowe's issued its final deadline. That same day, Blue Rhino's Vice President of Sales called AmeriGas's Director of National Accounts for 16 minutes. Immediately after, Blue Rhino emailed Walmart demanding acceptance. The very next morning, AmeriGas sent Walmart a nearly identical email. 4 days later, on October 10th, Walmart capitulated. The largest retailer on earth had been outmaneuvered by the only two suppliers who could fill its propane cages. Now here is the math that no one prints on the label. A typical exchange tank costs between $18 and $25 for 15 pounds of propane. 15 pounds converts to approximately 3.5 gallons, which means exchange customers are paying roughly $5.60 per gallon. Compare that to a refill at Costco, which offers propane at roughly 500 warehouse locations for between $2.59 and $3.65 per gallon. A full 20-pound refill typically costs between $10 and $15. The exchange customer pays more than double per gallon and receives 25% less propane per tank. So if the exchange system is designed to overcharge you, does that mean you should stop grilling? No. It means you need to stop walking up to a cage and start driving to a refill station. The most accessible option is U-Haul, which operates over 1,200 propane refill locations and charges between $3 and $4 per gallon for a full 20 pounds. Tractor Supply offers similar pricing at hundreds of locations. Your local independent propane dealer likely charges between $2 and $4 per gallon. You keep your own tank. You get the full 20 pounds every time, and you eliminate the exchange markup entirely. The best per gallon deal most Americans can find is Costco, where prices as low as $2.59 per gallon mean a full fill can cost under $11. If you grill regularly, you will save over $40 across a single season compared to exchanges. But there is something else you need to understand, and this is where the industry's safety excuse falls apart completely. A 20-pound propane tank is rated, designed, and legally permitted to hold 20 pounds. The 80% fill rule in safety codes is already built into the 20-pound designation. The tank's total water capacity is approximately 47.6 pounds, and at 80% liquid fill, that works out to roughly 20 pounds of propane. That is not a coincidence. It is the basis of the entire naming convention. Every independent refill station fills your tank to 20 pounds because that is what the tank was engineered to hold. Blue Rhino's own website does not claim the reduction was for safety. It states the change was made to help control rising costs. They are telling you in plain language that this was an economic decision. And if you want the most damning proof that consumer protection was never the priority, look at the TriSafe 2 valve. In the early 2000s, Blue Rhino deployed a proprietary valve on some tanks containing a steel ball mechanism that physically prevented any third party from refilling the tank. The only way to open it was with a magnetic key that only Blue Rhino employees possessed. They called it a safety innovation. Consumer advocates called it a hardware lock designed to trap customers inside the exchange system permanently. The backlash from grilling forums, camping communities, and consumer rights groups was so fierce that Blue Rhino eventually pulled the valve from circulation entirely. The Federal Trade Commission filed its complaint on March 27, 2014 under docket number 9360. Both companies settled with consent orders in October of that year. The orders prohibit future coordination on fill levels or pricing and do not expire until January 7, 2035. Neither company admitted wrongdoing. A parallel class action produced combined settlements of $19.1 million, with individual consumers eligible for as little as $2.50 per tank. Meanwhile, over 40 million canisters are still exchanged every year, generating an estimated $80 to $200 million in annual consumer overpayment. The fill levels never returned to 17 pounds. And today, every exchange tank in America still holds exactly 15 pounds because of a scheme coordinated in 2008. The next time you walk past that propane cage at your local hardware store, remember you are not looking at a competitive marketplace. You are looking at the permanent result of a campaign between two executives who decided exactly how much propane you deserve. Take your tank to Costco or U-Haul, get the full 20 pounds, and stop handing your money to a system that was designed to give you less from the very beginning. If you found this story eye-opening, hit subscribe so you never miss another deep dive into the industries that are quietly taking your money.